So let's talk about Mercedes, a team that's won 8 Constructors titles between 2014 and 2021. In that time they've won 111 races, 118 pole positions and achieved 232 podium finishes, making them arguably the most successful team in modern history. But in 2022 it's been a very difficult start. No wins or pole positions in 5 races and are currently 62 points behind championship leaders Ferrari. With Mercedes still struggling with their W13, can they find a solution to their problems and get their championship back on track? Or is all hope lost? So the first thing we're really going to ask is, what is wrong with the Mercedes? What is wrong with this W13? And I think it's like most other teams, it's porpoising. Porpoising is the bouncing you see when the car goes down the straight, and that's basically caused by, because when the car is going of course really fast down the straight, it's creating downforce which pushes the car to the ground. That then sort of limits the airflow going underneath the car, so then it raises itself up, and then when it gets back to sort of its normal ride height, it then creates downforce. As it does, then it goes down again, and then that same process happens, time and time again, until of course the car eventually stops or even slows down when it gets to a corner. Now every team has suffered with porpoising. One of the teams that is suffering more so with it is Ferrari, but they leave both championships, so that's a bit like confusing some fans, saying like, well, if Mercedes is struggling with their performance down to porpoising and Ferrari's having really bad porpoising, why is Ferrari winning races and getting pole positions and looking competitive, whereas the Mercedes isn't? And I think that's more down to setup and sacrifices made to the cars, because in order to sort of decrease this porpoising, there has to be some setups changes made to the car. Now Ferrari haven't had made as much sacrifices setup wise to their car, which is why they are still suffering with porpoising, but when it comes to the high speed corners, the car isn't as bad. They're able to sort of control the car when it comes into the braking zone, into corners. Whereas with the Mercedes, it's becoming very unpredictable because they have made a lot more changes than the Ferrari has. So when it's coming into a corner, they see the car bouncing a lot with Russell and Hamilton. The car, they'll put the foot on the brake, they'll get in the braking zone, and then the car just doesn't want to turn in because it's just lost so much airflow. It's just got, like I said, the changes is that different, that you've got understeer, you've got oversteer, you've got all sorts happening when it comes into the braking zone. That's what Mercedes is struggling with more so than porpoising. It's of course the setup, and of course you can solve it by raising the ride height of the car, which I think the Mercedes have done a little bit, but that then does hinder performances because you don't get as much downforce, you're not as quick in the corners. So I think that's what Mercedes is struggling with more than anything else, of course, the whole concept and design of this car. But it's something that Mercedes have been left scratching their heads over at the beginning of the season. How can we change this car, and what upgrades can we bring to this car, to the W13, to ultimately stop us sacrificing all this performance loss? Well, they did bring some upgrades to Miami, which looked as like it was going to work. I mean, George Russell topped the session in FP2, and they looked competitive in FP1. Now, that's only practice at the end of the day, so you should never really class that as like, alright, that's Mercedes back. Even though there were people talking about it on Friday, I remember social media was going off the scale, and even Sky themselves were saying, is Mercedes back? It's like, hang on a minute, it's only practice, let's not get ahead of ourselves. And luckily, well, some of us did and some of us didn't. Some of us were like, let's be realistic here, and lo and behold, come Friday in FP3, Mercedes were near the bottom. I'm not too sure why, I didn't miss practice FP3, but in qualifying, the pace was just not there anymore. So, and George Russell got knocked out in Q2, Hamilton just scraped into Q3. So again, those upgrades didn't really, they made a slight improvement, of course they did, but not the upgrade or the improvement that Mercedes would want in terms of performance of their cars. And George Russell started in P12. He then of course started on the hard tyres, gambled on a safety car, that saved his race, and Hamilton got a bit, did he get screwed over the safety car? You could say he did, you could say he didn't. I'll leave that for another video, but ultimately they finished in P5 and P6 respectively, Russell P5 and Hamilton in P6, mainly down to the fact that they did have a safety car to help Russell, that he gambled on that, which was a good strategy by Mercedes, of course. We should never not ignore that. But it's still, like, Mercedes are still not at the front. They still haven't got the pace with the likes of Ferrari and Red Bull. So yes, they have brought little upgrades. Did they work? There was a little bit of improvement, but ultimately there is still a very long way to go with this car. So the upgrades that they brought to Miami was a front wing upgrade and a rear wing upgrade. That's what they were trying to fix. Like I said, trying to hopefully not hinder the setup as much so they don't lose performance. But Ted Kravitz said in his notebook that Mercedes are, well, Toto Wolff especially said that the one thing that they need to fix is the floor. Now, Kravitz was saying that, well, it's not as simple as, you know, putting in the floor and there it is, job done. It has to work within the front wing and the rear wing too. So they've brought the upgrades there, and of course they haven't changed the floor. So if they need to change the floor, that means they need to do more upgrades to the front and rear wing and other elements of the car too. So overall it works. So that's a big challenge in itself in terms of, you know, trying to fix the car as well. So that's going to take some time, whereas, you know, other teams are going to be upgraded. They've already got their cars sort of there whereabouts they want them, so they can make further upgrades progressing on to the season. I think, you know, Red Bull have brought some upgrades themselves, Ferrari some minor upgrades, but I think they're going to be making some big upgrades come you know, towards the Spanish Grand Prix. So therefore Mercedes is still trying to solve their car, and other teams are, you know, 2-3 seconds ahead, essentially, you could say, in some sort of way. I'm not saying that's a theoretic truth, but I'm just saying that as an example that, you know, Mercedes, Ferrari and Red Bull, sorry, are miles ahead compared to where Mercedes are at this moment in time. But despite that, Mercedes do have the third quickest car on the grid. So saying it like that, it shouldn't really be classed as a crisis, but the fact that Mercedes have won 8 consecutive championships and 7 drivers' championships as well, it is classed as a crisis, especially for a team like Mercedes, given the position where they are. So it is going to be a real tough one for Mercedes to catch up on the other teams. So back in February, in this sort of shakedown or first test, or the test that wasn't a test, whatever you want to call it, Mercedes ran with the first version of the W13, which of course had the side pods. And then in the second test, or the first official test, again, whatever you want to call it, Mercedes hit the track, and that's when they had the no side pods, which everyone was talking about. Back then, it was a big thing that everyone just went, oh, here we go again. Mercedes have got the edge on everyone else. They found, you know, another concept or, you know, a way around the regulations as well to try and get the very best out of the car. And if you remember back in 2020 when they had the DAS system, that was sort of a similar kind of thing. Everyone was talking about it, and everyone's going to be going, oh, well, this has won Mercedes their 9th championship as well, so here we go again, another season dominated by Mercedes. Which, of course, we never really got to see the full potential of the car, because Mercedes was suffering a lot with, like I said, the porpoising, which Hamilton did say in his interview before the season got underway in Bahrain. He said, we're not going to be competing for wins at the beginning of the season because we're having trouble with this car, which everybody said, yeah, whatever. We've heard this before, Lewis. You know, you're not going to fool us this time. You know, all right, you might be you're sandbagging all this and that. You come up with a really good concept, no side pods, very initiative, very, you know, just Mercedes-like, thinking ahead of everybody else. Come qualifying, yeah, you'll be back to the way you were. And for me, anyways, it wasn't until Q3 I believed it. I didn't believe it. I was like, no, I'm having none of it. Q1 happened. I'm like, still sandbagging. Q2 happened. Still sandbagging. I thought they're going to leave it for Q3 this time. They really are. And once I seen the true pace of that Mercedes, you know, checker flag dropped. Qualifying was over. Mercedes were all the way back down towards the back, and you're like, all right, okay, then Mercedes do have problems with their car. I genuinely believe this now, all right? And things haven't improved since. So yeah, Mercedes are really on the back foot. Now, because the next race is in Barcelona, there's even talk that they're going to analyse the data from the Spec 1 car and, of course, the current car, which is the Spec 2, the no side pod, and see if there is any difference. And if there is some difference, if the Spec 1 is better in performance-wise compared to the Spec 2, Mercedes might even revert and go back to the Spec 1, which Toto Wolff said that was significantly slower, apparently significantly slower than the current design overall. But if the performance is better out of that car in terms of they don't need to make as much sacrifices, they can find a bit of pace, more pace in that car than they can in the Spec 2, that they're going to have to might go for that car and call it a day with the championship and look ahead to 2023, which is like the next sort of talking point, is the potential of aborting the championship and just sort of, you know, just holding the hands up, waving the white flag and going, nah, that's it, we are done, because if we continue with development with this car, it's going to hinder us next season, because there isn't a regulation change. It's sort of an upgrade or a development on this year's car, so the cars might look a bit similar next season than they do this season, unless someone finds us, you know, a revolutionary design on their car, which we have seen in the past, and I wouldn't be surprised if someone did find it for next season, you know, after a year with these new set of cars. So Mercedes don't want to really hang about with the W13 and go, right, this is okay, we need to find a solution to this problem, otherwise we're going to lose on the championship. Because, like I said earlier, the more time they find out the solution to the car and trying out how to make it work, Red Bull and Ferrari are looking at upgrades to make their cars even faster. And if Mercedes do find a solution to the problem, if they do end up finding an upgrade that works for the car, that they can find a way to get as much potential out of the car, or its true potential, because personally I do believe Mercedes have got a very quick car. But it's other elements to it as well, like I mentioned earlier, that is why Mercedes are so slow. So yeah, like I said, if they do revert back to the old Spec 1 car, and it is a bit slower than this concept, but it doesn't you know, have as much porpoising, and if they can make a little bit of upgrades to make it a bit quicker, but of course it's not going to be quick enough to challenge for a championship, then they might have to do that and then focus on 2023 and hopefully don't make the same mistake again. So yeah, a bottom championship could be an option, which I think they might have to take at some point this season. So after all that then, I'll give you my overall conclusion on Mercedes then. Do I think that they will win the 2022 championship? The short answer is yeah, they still can, of course they can, mathematically, because there's still a bundle of points to play for, of course there is. That is like the short answer. Yes, they can, because mathematically they're still in the fight with the championship. There's still like, what, 19 or 18 races to go. Yeah, it's such a long season that anything could happen. But the long-term answer is, it's very unlikely. Very, very unlikely. Now, and like I said before, because they're spending so much time developing this car or trying to fix this car, that the other teams ahead of them, even could be teams behind them, likes of, you know, McLaren and Alpine, they could, or even Alfa Romeo, thereabouts, they could be the ones to close up to Mercedes, because they've got their car more or less sorted. They're going to have time. They're not going to be fighting for championships next season, but maybe not, I don't know. But they could have time to, right, okay, let's bring upgrades to the car. And if Mercedes is still where they are, then you could see the likes of McLaren and other teams sort of closing the gap on Mercedes, and then they could be dropping to possibly fourth. I think worst case scenario will be third place. I think they will have a solution to the problem where they're not going to get caught by McLaren or caught by Alpine and other teams. That won't be the case. Mercedes aren't that. I do think though that they might eventually have to throw in the towel and call it a day if they can't find any solutions, like I said, to the car, and revert back to the old design. But what I will say though is, just don't rule out Mercedes just yet. Despite all this, despite the problems that they've got, despite everything that's happening, you shouldn't rule them out. They're not 8-time world champions for nothing. The fact that they've dominated the sport for so long, they've been the pioneers in technology in Formula 1. They've created so many interesting designs on the car and the engine side of things as well. They're such a solid foundation team. They're really, really good at what they do. Like I said, they don't win championships for nothing. This is, of course, the toughest year so far in the hybrid era. They're referring, you know, Toto Wolff was going back to 2013 when they weren't challenging for championships back then. Hamilton is the only driver to still win a race in every single season, and at this moment in time it looks like he's nowhere near a race win so far. But Formula 1 is a crazy place and it can create some really crazy results. So you might get a lucky break here or there, you know, safety car or strategy change or reliability at the front. There could be a collision between Max and Charles, or Perez and Sainz, or Sainz and Max. Who knows what could happen in Formula 1? Like I said, it is very, very unpredictable. But overall, I'll give you my conclusion now. Do I think Mercedes will win the championship in 2022? No, I don't think they will. Like I said, don't rule them out. But it's so difficult to see where they're going to solve it, because surely they would have solved it by now. And the fact that it's race 5 and they still haven't properly solved the issues with their car, I think it's going to be, it is bleak. But in saying that, if they do solve it by Spain or even Monaco, and they do get the full potential out of this car, then they could be that quick that they might be able to catch up with Red Bull and Ferrari. But I don't know, because Red Bull are looking so quick and Ferrari are looking very consistent as well. I think it could be a point where they might get a quick car, but it could be too little too late, and they might not be able to catch Ferrari or Red Bull. So yeah, that's my overall summary. That's my overall opinion on this. I can't say Mercedes winning. I think this could be the end of the Mercedes dominance in both drivers and constructors. Let me know what you think about this in the comment section below. Love to hear your thoughts on what everyone's talking about this. Can they do it? Can they not? Love to hear what you guys think about this as well. And actually, this is the first sort of debate video that we've done back on the channel since relaunching a few weeks ago. So thank you so much for watching as well. And it's good to be back, like I've said before. Was off ill for a few weeks or so. Struck down this weird sort of flu. It wasn't COVID. I don't know what it was. I was bedbound for about 3 days, and yeah, I couldn't make videos, and then I didn't have the energy afterwards. It was weird. But no, it's good to be back. Got the motivation again. Got the energy back as well, of course. Very, very important. And yeah, it's like I said, it's really good to be back making debate show videos once again. Next video could be an F1 24/7. It could be a debate show. I'm not too sure yet. Like I said, my work schedule is not quite fitting in with this just yet. So it could be 1 video a week for now, maybe 2 in the future. We'll have to see how that goes. But guys, thank you so much for watching as always. Hope you did enjoy the video. If you did, please drop it a like. Like I said, comment below your opinions on this. Subscribe if you're new around here. Love to see new faces as well. And I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.